Hi, everyone. I'm Macy Zander, the local reuse manager here with Upstream. As we've all probably witnessed, single-use disposables are increasingly used in restaurants across North America, even when patrons are dining in. Over 20% of disposable foodware and packaging used by US restaurants and food service businesses could be eliminated today if we made reusables the norm for on-site dining. A reuse for on-site dining policy requires restaurants and other food service businesses to provide only reusable food serviceware for customers that are eating on the premises. When you think about it, reuse for on-site dining is nothing new, and it really is back to basics. Before the advent of fast food, customers enjoying a meal while out and about were automatically served with real cups, with real dishes, and real cutlery. With this context in mind, I'm so excited to be joined here today with Emily Parker, coastal and marine scientist with Heal the Bay, and Alison Waliszewski, Director of Policy and Programs with Five Gyres. Alison and Emily lead the coalition Reusable LA, which is composed of over 30 organizations advocating for more reuse across the greater Los Angeles region. Reusable LA has been instrumental in a number of single-use reduction policies being passed in the area in the last several years, including the single-use plastic foodware ordinance, which included reuse for on-site dining for LA County. We're eager to have Alison and Emily here today to discuss their advocacy and top tips for advocates that are looking to bring reuse for on-site dining to their own communities. So my first question that I have for you both is, can you tell us briefly about Reusable LA and the coalition's advocacy around reuse, particularly reuse for on-site dining?
Absolutely. Macy, first of all, thank you so much for having us here today to talk about this really important topic. We're all reuse nerds, so we're excited to talk about reuse for on-site dining. To start, Reusable LA is a coalition, as you mentioned, of over 30 plus organizations based in the Los Angeles region. We have a variety of different members in our coalition, ranging from environmental nonprofits like the organization that I work for and the organization that Alison works for, to different individuals, to social media content creators, to even to reuse businesses. So businesses that are using reuse to help reduce waste. And together, those organizations come together as the Reusable LA Coalition, specifically to advocate for a thriving culture of reuse and refill in Los Angeles to reduce plastic pollution and the harms that it causes. And we have a variety of different laws and policies that we've advocated for over the years, and a key one has been reuse for on-site dining. As our name implies, Reusable LA is all about reuse and refill, and so reuse for on-site dining just makes a lot of sense. And we hope to see all of the restaurants and dining facilities in Los Angeles move to this style of serving, where we're using, like you said, reusable plates, reusable cutlery, instead of disposable ones at restaurants when folks are actually sitting there and eating. And we've done this at the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, and also other surrounding cities. LA is a unique region. We have 88 different municipalities throughout the region, lots of different decision makers to talk to, and thousands upon thousands of restaurants to slowly transition over to reuse.
That's amazing. Gosh, I can't even imagine having to deal with so many different jurisdictions. That's incredible. Yeah, so based on your experience in the coalition, what are the best ways you all have found to engage the community on reuse for on-site dining policy? And what's been effective for you all in your work as a coalition?
Thanks, Macy. So what I'll start with is talking about how our coalition is structured, because it's really important to have a very strong, intentional, well-crafted internal strategy to be able to execute and strengthen those relationships with community members, decision makers, and restaurant groups. So our coalition is structured with three different arms. We have a communications arm, we have a restaurant and businesses relationship arm, and then we also have a policy subcommittee that kind of steers where our the language in our ordinances should be, and manages like lobbying meetings and everything kind of under that umbrella. So our communications arm has been very strongly managing our newsletter network, and so we have a very engaged subscriber base of over, Emily, fact check me if I'm right on this, but I want to say it's like at least at like 4,000 at this point, 4,000
It
folks who
is.
receive
Yeah, that's
our
right.
newsletter. And we also have over a 50% open rate. So we make sure that when we have communications, there is always some sort of call to action for our volunteers, for our subscribers. And the community in Los Angeles is very tapped into virtual networks. Social media and different types of like online platforms are a very popular way for people to connect, since LA is such a spread out and diverse region. So we've had a lot of success with our virtual campaigns, where we leverage a platform called Phone to Action that basically allows for petitions for folks to directly call their members of LA City Council or like Board of Supervisors. And we keep, very, very close tabs on, what those kinds of engagement statistics look like. We gamify it. We break down for people, the different types of policy jargon, like what does a first reading mean? What is a board of, what are the LA County Board of Supervisors versus LA City? What does the unincorporated areas of the county mean? And so we make policy work very digestible for our community, for our, for our online and in-person community members. And so folks can feel like they have a grasp of it. They can participate in their local like civic opportunities. So that, I would say, is kind of one strength or tactic that we use to promote engagement behind both our campaigns and mobilizing this culture of reuse. Another really important opportunity that coalition leaders need to be thinking about is how can community members get involved. What is your opening entry for participation? And so what we've spent the past year building out is a tip card campaign that essentially allows for anybody to request like a little. Emily, do you have the tip cards in front of you? I would love to show them. I don't have them in front of me. But
I wish I did. I don't have a physical one in front of me, but they're so awesome. They look like little business cards, and they're easy to carry around in your wallet and hand out. I'll let you describe them more, Alison.
Yeah. And so essentially what the intent is because we have passed so many plastics related ordinances over the past 3 years that there are a lot of questions around compliance. So one of our outreach tactics for businesses is leveraging our volunteer base to drop a tip card that basically has a little QR code that shows them, that takes them to our website, which is a resource hub, which basically shares, okay, where are you at and what laws apply to you and how can you comply? Because compliance is really important for efficacy of the, for the ordinances to work, for them to be effective. And then the last kind of tactic that I'll share is that we use crowdsourced surveying data to inform our legislators, our city council members on, the popularity of these types of policy measures. So before we even attempted any sort of like plastics reduction ordinance in 2019, we worked with local university students and put together a multilingual survey to basically ascertain that 88% of restaurants would support a fee on disposables and would support legislation around reuse mandates and practices. So, when we're coming to policymakers with suggested ideas, we already have the surveys to prove that the community would be supportive. And so I think that's a really important step to take.
Yeah.
Would you have anything else, Emily, to add?
You covered it. Our coalition does a lot, as you can tell, and it definitely takes a village to get laws like this passed.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so. Yeah, that's super impressive. Thank you for sharing that. So I guess a little bit on the flip side of this, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced in advocating for policy, particularly reuse for on-site dining? And how did you overcome some of these issues?
Well, with any plastic reduction ordinance or law, there's going to be challenges that you face because there are going to be folks that unfortunately oppose those laws. So with not just reuse for on-site dining, but all of the laws that we've tried to pass, we have faced opposition predominantly from plastic production companies and, folks that are set up to make money from disposable plastics, right? And so those are going to be the types of folks that are going to be opposing these laws. And that is oftentimes a big opponent to have. They tend to have a lot of power and a lot of money. So that can be really challenging. And so what we don't have in, dollars to back up our lobbying efforts, we make up for in community and we make up for in information. And so that's why so much of the work that Alison just described is so important. We also faced opponents not only from plastic production companies, but also sometimes from restaurant associations and grocers associations who unfortunately have a misinformed idea that these kinds of laws could result in financial hardship or economic hardship or even the closing of their businesses. And one of the things that we have pushed really hard for is to dispel that misinformation and to showcase just how beneficial these laws actually can be for these businesses. While yes, of course, they do result in a necessary change, that change will actually save those businesses money over time. One of our coalition members, they are called Rethink Disposable, and they have done dozens of case studies, not only in LA, but across the entire California region to show that these laws actually do save businesses money. And so coming with that information, having that sort of counter argument and showing these businesses like, hey, not only is this going to be good for, waste reduction, not only is your customer base going to love it, but it is going to actually help you save a ton of money. As much as we've seen $20,000 a year for some businesses, that information alone is more powerful than the millions of dollars of lobbying money that we're often up against. And so that's one of the ways that we've overcome those issues. We've also had unexpected issues that I think are important to address. Like, these are the kind of issues that we were ready for. We knew we were going to have opposition, and we were ready with the information that we needed to dispel that. What we weren't prepared for was, for example, something like the COVID-19 pandemic, which skyrocketed the use of disposable plastic food serviceware, not only in LA, but across the entire globe. And also, unfortunately, resulted in the loss of trust in a lot of folks in reusable foodware as being a safe option, even though that's not true. Reusable foodware is completely safe. It will not transfer COVID-19, but that didn't matter. Big plastic companies took that and ran with it. And unfortunately, it did result in this massive increase. And so at that time, that was like, oh, huge pivot that we needed to make. And we needed to come armed with even more information to dispel that, misinformation that was being pushed around the community. And so I think the biggest things that we've learned about overcoming these challenges is that having good, strong relationships with your community, with the businesses that may be impacted by the laws that you're passing, and with the decision makers is super, super important. That way, when there is misinformation and you come with the truth, your truth is trusted and you are, known as experts in the field, and the information that you're providing is taken for fact. And I think that's really, really important. And not only that, we're also able to go to restaurants in our community and talk to them and have them actually come advocate with us. That is a huge way that we've overcome those challenges that we've met.
Thanks a lot for that, Emily. That was really comprehensive. And yeah, I know it can be hard to discuss issues we face, but it sounds like the coalition has really done a lot to overcome a lot of these. So kudos to all of you.
We think about it a lot, for sure.
I bet. Well, the next question that I have, and I would love to open this one up to both of y'all, is based on everything you've learned, which it seems like it's a lot, what are your top tips for other advocates that are maybe just getting started and are interested in passing a reuse for on-site dining policy, again, in their own community?
I would say...
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Alison. You go first.
Go ahead, Emily.
The word you just said, which is community. I think I would say it over and over and over again. Community, community, community. I think connecting with lots of different types of people, building relationships, whether it's with, a city council member and their staff, so you can rely on them to vote yes, or even to champion a bill, whether it's with your local businesses, knowing that you can rely on them to tell the truth and share that, they're actually benefiting from these changes, or whether it's connecting with, just your local community members, the people in your community that are excited about these kinds of things, want to push them forward. Building that community engagement, I think, has been huge for us. And over the course of the 4 years that Alison and I have been running this coalition, the more tapped into our community we are, the better we're faring. So that's a big tip I could provide. I'm sure Alison has more.
Yeah, I would say, understanding pacing and what realistic bandwidth you have and where your personal strengths and weaknesses are. And then, circling back to underscoring community. It's really important to understand, okay, I may bring strong communication skills to the table, but who do I know that has relationships with restaurants, and then potentially recruiting partners that can complement your series of strengths and skill sets is important when you're building this kind of coalition or group or community who's going to be championing your policy recommendations. And then two, I would say resources are so important, and resources don't necessarily need to mean grant funding. Our coalition is a mixture of both funded, paid positions, and individual passionate volunteers, but understand and transparently what that kind of time commitment is going to look like. And then you can kind of build out a plan that will be manageable and sustainable, because, policy work isn't a fast food pace. It's policy work at the pace of life. So you need to, in order to maintain momentum potentially over the course of years. So like in Los Angeles, for example, it took us over 10 years to get an expanded polystyrene ban. We're in it for the long haul. We're building relationships, building trust with your elected officials too. I think trust is such a key element here for success. Building relationships takes time, and it's a two-way street. Policymakers and other community advocates and champions may not necessarily care about your issue, but if you show up there for their issues, that they will also show up and support on game day for your issues as well. So I think there's we need to build symbiotic relationships amongst community organizers.
Great. Thanks a lot for that, y'all. Emily, did you want to add anything else there?
I think Alison has it covered. Yeah. Resources, awesome. Volunteers, good pacing, strong community relationships. Those are the best tips we can provide. And I think maybe the last one I would say is the hardest part is starting. Mm-hmm. Once you get going, once you've got a community built, once you've got relationships going, then the work, I have found, tends to kind of move itself forward. Just the other day, I got an email from, someone at the county saying like, hey, we've got some funds for y'all to help us with the campaign. You want to help? And we were like, absolutely. So once you get the ball rolling, it rolls. So just start. If you're thinking about doing this in your community, just do it. And it will move forward.
I love that. That's great.
Trust in the process.
Trust in the process. Great. Thanks a lot, y'all. My last question is, do you all have any advice to activists, advocates who might be in areas where passing policy is really challenging, but they still want to encourage a switch to reusables, particularly reuse for on-site dining? What would be your advice to those advocates in particular?
That's a good question, Macy, because there are a lot of areas where the idea of having a government entity, create a ban on certain materials or items or mandates in general can be very controversial. So what do you do when there's aversion to mandates and bans? So what I think one thing that we have found is that those green champions, those sustainability champions who really do care about this issue, one, you can highlight their commercial and marketing success, because there inevitably is there is a reward, there is return on investment for reuse and sustainable practices, right? What we have found, and there are studies and case studies to prove this, is that customers are willing to pay more for sustainable materials because it's something that they value. So that's one angle, right? There is a case study and an economic incentive to be green, to be sustainable. And then two, I'd say you would want to look at building voluntary types of practices in those areas, because you're going to have more compliance when individuals, when restaurant owners, when businesses are already bought into the idea. So look at maybe partnering with your local business improvement district to see if, if they would be open to running some sort of like reuse pilot. And because inevitably when you have more reuse, you're going to have cleaner city streets, you're going to have less litter, less plastic pollution. And so tying in these two kind of problems and solutions, like these don't exist in a void. So you can do a brand audit, do a litter study to understand, okay, we're finding mainly beverages, food packaging, food service, where it'd be great, we could attract more business to this neighborhood, to this area, if this issue was prevented. And so that's also another tie-in that I think tends to be very successful in more more conservative areas, or more, areas that want to promote like independent kind of thinking and policy structures. So those are two different, approaches or mechanisms that I would say. Like, there's always an economic case study, and there is, brand appeal if someone can point and say, oh, this is a sustainable or green restaurant.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good wisdom. I appreciate you sharing that, Alison. Well, Emily and Alison, those are the questions I have for you all today. I appreciate you all taking the time. And I think a lot of people are going to find this conversation valuable. And I guess closing out, where is a good place for people to find you if they would like to connect directly?
Oh, we are easy to find. You can go to reusablela.org. That's our website. You can find lots of information on there about who we are and what we do. Also, that's where our tip cards live. So if you're in the LA region and you want to get your hands on some tip cards, you can actually order some and we'll mail them to you. So that's a good place to get a hold of us. We're also on social media. So you can find us on Instagram at reusablela. That's a great place to follow us if you're interested in following along on some of the advocacy journeys that we're on, the laws that we're passing. We share all kinds of interesting news stories on that page. So definitely hit us up there. We also have an email address, reusablela@gmail.com. So you can always email us too. And we also have a newsletter that you can sign up for on our website. So we love to communicate with our community, and we're very easy to find.
Lots of options there. Well, thanks a lot, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Macy.
Thanks, Macy.
Bye.